love riding my bike. I love running. I don't care what they think about it. I love it.
At that point, when I knew I was going to win, chills just went up and down my entire body.
I don't believe there are any good or bad foods. Food is food.
I still feel so passionate about getting that record that I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
As an athlete, I was like, what's my story, or what's your story? What can you learn from it? And what can you teach people?
Welcome to the IronWomen podcast. I'm Haley Chura, and this week, returning from her great adventure is my co-host, Alyssa Godesky. Alyssa, where were you last week? We missed you.
Where was I? That is a great question, Haley. I think I was everywhere. I was in 14 different states. I was crewing for a 4-person team in the Race Across America bicycle race that takes place every June, racing from Oceanside, California to Atlantic City, New Jersey. I had a mixed team, so 3 men, 1 woman, and they all are coached by coaches in our coaching system at Biscay Coaching. So I took the job as crew chief for this amazing adventure, and let me tell you, it was surely an adventure. I'm back home now, and I will admit that I woke up last night, Haley, in the middle of the night, and I turned and looked at my clock, and it said like 3:30, and I just had this like panic feeling of doom, and I was like trying to figure out what bed in the RV I was sleeping in at that moment. And I couldn't figure it out. And I like was so panicked and so confused that I had dropped a ball and we had like slept through some sort of transition we were supposed to make. I like grabbed my phone and I'm literally like I didn't even use the flashlight. Like, you know how if you light up your phone, it just like brightens the area. So I'm like doing that to try and figure out like where I am in the RV. And then I'm like, all of a sudden I'm just like, I think that's a dog. I think I'm at home. Like, what's going on?
You're like, I'm not about to fall off one of those like upper bunks in an RV. You're like, oh, it's Ramona. Okay, we're good. Wow. Okay, wait. I want to start at the end here though. Did your team finish? I need to know.
Haley, we did. We finished in about 6.5 days. We surpassed our own kind of goals and expectations, and we ended up setting a course record for the mixed category of the 50 to 59 age group. So that was really exciting. That was kind of like a, icing on the cake type of goal that we felt like we could shoot for as things were evolving, but we really had no idea. I mean, every single person from the riders to the crew on this adventure were rookies. Like none of us had been involved in any way with RAM before. And so it was a huge, huge learning curve. And, as it unfolded, it just felt like, yeah, we kind of really leaned into it and it obviously worked out. And so it was really fun. We did end in Atlantic City around like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday to a very quiet boardwalk. And they were able to get that record and that was really exciting.
Yeah. Okay. So you ended in Atlantic City. You started in Oceanside, California, 6.5 days earlier. And what was that like for you getting everything ready? You were the crew chief, so you had to handle, I'm assuming, all of the major logistics. Is that right?
Yes, or handle or delegate, I would say. So I fully admit that I had created, kind of pulled together a team of 10 crew people or 9 other crew members who were superstars. And so, we certainly did a divide and conquer thing over the last 6 months, but it has been full on for the last 6 months where we've been having Zoom calls like every other week with crew and the riders and kind of organizing things, learning rules, getting everything sorted and figuring out there's so much prep work that goes into this because your team is literally going to travel from one side of the country to the other. And so you have to figure out like, are you going to do that with an RV? Are you going to have, what kind of other vehicles are you going to have? Do you, have enough people to fill the roles because it mandates, 2 people always have to be in the follow car as a driver and a navigator. And like, do you have that for each car? And, all sorts of things just that like really stretch your mind to make sure everything is covered for 24/7, for the time that you're going to be out there. So yes, over the last 6 months, we have, as a team, just been full on in logistics mode, packing and, getting all of the things ready. If you've ever seen a Ram car, it's like, you don't just, get a car and it's a follow vehicle. It's like you have to get the car, make sure you have all the stickers that are correctly ordered that will be branded on there, because they have like, mandated kind of safety and other race decals that you have to put on the car. You have to put on a series of lights that are mandated so that like it attracts attention and it's like really visible on the road and things like that. So you really have to make sure. And if you don't have all that stuff, you can't start, right? So it has definitely been a lot of logistics, a lot of learning, and a lot of reading that RAM rule book to make sure we had everything in place to show up in Oceanside. And then even still, people got to, some of the team got to Oceanside a little less than a week early. And so I wasn't there quite that early, but the team had already been there and started, feet on the ground, getting things organized, packing the bins, getting the Costco runs done, all of that stuff. Because again, it's like you're self-sufficient. So we're taking all of our food, we could stop along the way, but we wanted to have the majority of our food packed and just all the supplies, riders, crew, and everyone would need along the way. And so it was a lot of shopping. It's a lot of shopping.
And you were one of the 2 RV drivers. And how was that? Was this your first time driving an RV?
It's my second time. So I drove an RV once when I went to Wildflower Triathlon, right? Like the full on wildflower experience, I feel like what required an RV. So I did do that 1 year there. But this was definitely my first extended time driving an RV. And I will say it was a roller coaster. There were some times when it was really fun, sometimes on the windy mountain roads where like it was not so fun at all. Not so fun when you have 14 people living out of it for 7 days, but and not so fun when you're like emptying the Blackwater tank for the bathroom situation. We had a few mishaps there that definitely I would love to not repeat. But then it is fun, but at the same time it's fun. It's like a giant school bus, right? And it's like can be kind of like a party with everyone just in one vehicle and having a good time, and you're able to like eat and get things and sleep and do what you want and like live out of this car. So that part of it is kind of fun. But it also is really stressful as a driver when you have all of these lives in your hand and you're like it's 2 a.m. I've only slept 4 hours in the past 3 days and I'm driving these people, on these roads that I don't even know. So it came with a lot of responsibility. Everything ended up fine and great, but it was stressful in the moment. It was really, really stressful.
And when you have a 4-person team like this, how long are these polls? Like how long is each person on the road usually?
So you are probably envisioning what I envisioned when I first heard about this project, where especially because my team was full of Ironman triathletes, right? So surely they could pull like an hour or 2 each, right, at a time without having to swap over. But then as I started doing some research last year and kind of making strategy for the racing aspect of it, because since we did coach all of these athletes, we were going to kind of help formulate that strategy for the racing side of it. And talking to people, it became really clear that like through the 40 years that RAM has existed, one kind of strategy has risen to the top as what is the fastest. And that is actually to have your riders, when you have a team, obviously solos and like even 2-person teams would probably be a bit different. But when you have 4 and 8-person teams, doing like 20 to 30 minute pulls is the fastest way, right? And so, because you can just go hard for 20 minutes, you get 20 minutes off, right? Go hard for 20 minutes, 20 minutes off. And then you pick your like amount of time you do that for, and then you kind of swap. So we broke our 4-person team into pairs of 2, and that's what they did. In the beginning, we picked like 6-hour blocks where 2 people would rotate 20 to 30 minutes and then swap for 6 hours, and then 4-hour blocks, for the same thing. Kind of really as we were traveling through the desert, I shortened the blocks of time just so that they weren't out in the heat for too long. But then, I think after day 3, we actually went pretty much all to like 6 to 7-hour blocks, because that really helped the riders on their off shift, like maximize the rest time. And I think because they are Ironman triathletes, they were not really fazed by doing, 20 on, 20 off for 6 or 7 hours. I think that came pretty naturally to them, so that was interesting to see evolve as we went, and to see kind of figure out what that sweet spot was, where they felt like they were effective riding, but then also still getting enough rest that they needed in their off shift.
Yeah. And what about your off shift? Did you get, it sounds like you got some sleep, but not a lot.
Not a lot. So that was kind of, honestly, it was the one part of the plan that like had not been fully ironed out going into it, because in an ideal world, we would have found one other crew member who could have come, and that would have really helped, so that we would have had like a person to rotate between the driver, the navigator, and the third person for the RV to kind of give us some time, because otherwise we were relying on breaks from people who had just spent 6 hours in a follow vehicle, right? Or a transfer vehicle, helping the riders do their riding. And those jobs are super, super stressful. I mean, the follow vehicles at night or at other times, even during the day, they are, mandated to be within 30 feet of the rider following behind them. And so, that is a full on, to do that for 6 hours is very exhausting and very taxing, very stressful. And so, and you're dealing with like the traffic trying to come around you, right? And people being nice or mean or whatever. So you have all of those dynamics, and then you get your 6 hours of rest, and to have me be like, excuse me, can you actually now drive the RV like 180 miles, right, to our next destination? I felt like, that was a really hard thing to do. And so, luckily, how did we end up with sleep? We just had a few times where we had people who, were ready to kind of not sleep, right? They were like, I feel awake right now. It kind of relied on spur of the moment, someone looking at us and saying, I feel pretty awake. I can do one of those jobs, right? I can drive or I can navigate the RV. And then you had to take them up on it, right? There was like, no. So like when that happened to me, I was like, okay, I'm out, right? You take this for 4 hours, that kind of thing. And then towards the end, we figured out a way where one of the vehicles could operate with one person in it. And so we were able to pull that second person into the RV to help us kind of rotate that shift too. But I swear, in the first few days, Haley, every time I laid down to try and sleep, my phone would ring, because like everything filters through the crew chief, like all the rule questions and anything like that, where there's anything kind of questionable that we want to make sure we do right, it comes to me. And so at first I was like, I can't sleep, because every time I sleep, I feel like something kind of goes marginally wrong. Like the toilet will clog, or someone's cleat will break, or someone's headset like disintegrates, right? So like I was basically like, as long as I stay awake, nothing bad will happen. So, but that strategy is not totally foolproof either.
And when you're traveling across the entire country like that, did you have a favorite state and a least favorite state or region?
So I did think that the like the desert area in, I think it was outside of California, where it was like the dune recreation area or something, like sand dune recreation area. It's either, I think it was California, but someone can fact check me on that. That was really cool. I've been to the desert around like Palm Springs and in Arizona and things like that. And so I had this very clear desert landscape in mind, and I didn't expect the landscape that we saw in the sand dune recreation area. I mean, it was so cool. It was really cool. We kind of hit it at sunset, so we got to see the stars out there too, and things like that. That was definitely one of my probably favorite like nights. Also around that time, we met this dog when we were like stopped, and I came so close to taking the dog home with us, Haley, but I didn't. He like wanted to come in our RV so bad. It was like, it was so precious. But my least favorite states would definitely be, I think, Kansas and Missouri. It was just really, really hard driving to stay like straight on those roads for so many miles at a time. And during that time that we were in the States, we had really, really bad wind. So it was like a constant crosswind at like 20 to 25 miles an hour. And so it was just, you couldn't hear anything. Every time you opened the car doors, everything was blowing out and blowing around. And it was really stressful. Like you could barely hold people's bikes, and like, you couldn't do like anything. The wind was so bad. It really and truly rivaled the worst wind I have seen in Kona, right? It was like that kind of a day where I was just like, thank goodness this is not a headwind for these riders, because a crosswind is like somewhat manageable, right? But that if it was a headwind, I think we would have been out there for quite a while longer, to be honest. But it was just brutal. It was relentless and it was brutal. And so I think it was just like, I don't love wind. You can't hear yourself think. You don't get any calm moments, nothing like that. And then I was always just a little bit more worried about the riders and their safety and stuff out there. So that's probably my least favorite area.
What about the other cars on the road? You alluded to this a little bit. There's some nice cars. There's some not so nice drivers out there. Were there certain parts of the country where the drivers were more courteous than others?
Um, yes, and yes. I think the Midwest, like, is Kansas and Missouri the Midwest? I would say like Ohio through Maryland actually had some really nice drive. This is probably a better question for the
Really?
riders, actually.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, driving and like what I was able to see, I felt like that was like a pretty favorable area. Colorado, definitely not very favorable at all to the
Really?
riders. Yeah. And also just not favorable to the race, right? Like the race staff had a ton of issues with just people getting angry and calling the police about the race coming through their towns and things like that. And so they actually had to like change kind of some of the follow rules and things like that spur of the moment as people were in Colorado, because just to try and like save face with some of the towns and to keep people on their good graces. But and just out west in general, I think, some of the speed limits are just so high and there's no shoulders and it's just, to do RAM, I will say you absolutely need to develop a high tolerance to riding in traffic. There's no way around that. Like they do have some good safety protocols in place, but it is not 100%, right? And you need to just be comfortable riding in traffic. There were some areas where I was like, I am shocked that we are sending our riders onto a road like this. And I mean, that's what happens when you have a race that goes across our entire country, right? And you need to make a route for that. But, and I think people who sign up for RAM understand that and know what they're getting into. But for sure, if you have not kind of, I think, developed a tolerance for that, it would be a really tough race. Because there were parts of every day where you would be in a lot of traffic with cars, even if the nicest cars, it's just still a lot of traffic at times, right? And that's pretty unnerving.
This is a race. Did it feel like a race? Were you seeing other teams very frequently?
Um, we did see teams like, especially in the first like 4 days, we saw teams decent amount, right? Like there was always someone kind of around that you would see as you drove up and down the road. The last 2 days, much more scarcely populated with teams because everyone got so spread out. But I will say, but that was also the point when it started to feel like a race because, doing the math, it started to look like things would align where we were in contention for the record, right? And so having known that going in, that was kind of the time when I was able to pull that out and like kind of use that as a ploy to help the racing a little bit more and to help keep kind of the foot on the gas for riders when it is easy to forget that it is kind of a race against the clock. And they have really pretty good live tracking in the race. So even though you might not be seeing teams around you, cell service was pretty good. I will say I was shocked for a lot of the country, and you could always pull up the live tracker and see so that you knew, like, even if you weren't seeing them directly, there was a team, 50 miles behind you and there was a team 80 miles ahead of you and things like that. And you were gaining on them and things like that. So having that live tracking definitely helps keep the competitive spirit alive. But like any, I think, really long endurance event, whenever you saw another team, it was more about like, hey, we're in this together versus like, hey, we're trying to beat you, right? So I think that, that definitely holds as a special part of RAM that many endurance events have.
Was there any drama that you can tell us about?
So within my crew, we actually, I mean, we definitely had a few conflicts here and there, but honestly, like nothing super crazy. But I will tell you, I don't know, do you want to hear
I want to
The
hear it all.
gross,
Yes.
the gross story. You want to hear my gross RV story?
Sure.
This one's
I
so
don't
gross.
know if I do. I was hoping for more like salacious gossip,
I
but
know. I
gross
don't
works.
think it wasn't the gossip wasn't really happening on our team, but there were definitely other teams out there that you know, when you hear this happens every time, like a crew person or a teammate will just like walk away in the middle of the country, and that definitely held true this year. That was happening. And I think that that kind of helped our team be like, we're not letting that happen to us, right? So we kind of kept ourselves together in that. But I'm trying to think. We just always had.
What's
I
the
mean,
gross
things,
story?
and things are funny when they're
Grosser
not
than-
that funny to tell on a podcast, right? Like it's funny to us that like the Fix-A-Flat can is like going bonkers, right? When we're trying to fix like a flat tire on the van. But like to tell that story here is not going to be as fun to you, but I will tell you the gross story, Haley. Okay, so I was co-piloting the RV with Jerry Link, who I think he's 79. He is the high school cross country coach of Brian, who was one of the like lead riders who is kind of his team and his dream to pull this together. So Jerry was my partner in crime when we still were like rallying for crew a couple months ago. And so he had initially kind of been nervous because he said, I'm 79. I don't know if I can keep up with an event like this. And basically 2 months ago, we were like, Jerry, you're in. We need a human, right? So like, you can do it. We'll help you through it. Come help Alyssa drive the RV. So he and I, he also had never driven an RV, no experience that way. And he was in it. He wanted to drive across the country. He wanted to see the sights. And he is like the most positive, motivating, like man. You can totally see how he's like a cross country coach with many accolades to his name, because, you know, people under him they're just motivated. They're inspired. Like you could see how he brings that out in people. So he was great to have as my partner, and he was super into the sights and sounds of the country. And so like he did a lot of the driving. He did the bulk of the driving and I did the bulk of the navigating. And I have so many pictures on my phone of like the landscape with like the hood of our RV in it, because every like 15 minutes he'd be like, take a picture of this, take a picture of this. And so I was like, Jerry, these like aren't going to be that good of photos, so go back and look at it. But he just, you know, really wanted the memories. So I have a lot of those to send to him. But we were just having a good time learning the ins and outs of the RV. And along with that came the learning curve of the toilet situation in an RV. And so about day 3, we ended up with a clog. And we ended up with this clog because, Haley, we realized that, you know, again, as soon as we realized it, it made total sense. But like, we probably should have been asking people to limit the toilet paper that's going down the system, right? Because it's like, you know, we should have been like very European, right? Like no toilet paper in the thing, like throw it in this basket over here, right? Just to like help the sanitation system. But we didn't do that. We ended up with a clog. I'm sure it's like a very rookie mistake. And so as we were troubleshooting that, we had a lot of help from our fellow crew members. People are just like pulling on the things, trying to get it, you know, to work. We couldn't get it to work. Finally, we were like, okay, it's clogged. Pack it up, go on the next day. We get the like anti-clog stuff. We're putting it in, right? We're like, no one used the toilet for the next 12 hours. We're going to try again in 12 hours. So 12 hours passes. We think the clog has like disintegrated a little, right? We're like ready to go. And we pull up to a KOA campground where we're going to empty the black water. And so I'm standing there and I'm like, hey, Jerry, you should put on gloves for this. And he's like, I don't. And I'm like, Jerry, put on the gloves, right? So I give him the gloves. He puts on the gloves. And the system is made so that there's like, there's a lever that opens and shuts the valve of the black water, which is like the poop water, right? The black water. And so that stays closed and it goes into this pipe, and then the pipe has like an end cap on it. So when you were doing this, you have a hose, right? So you would normally take the end cap off and connect the hose before opening the valve, right? So that's what Jerry was going to do. But unbeknownst to Jerry, when we had all those people fiddling with the system the day before, the Blackwater valve had never actually been shut. Okay. And so this meant there was no stoppage point for the Blackwater as he opened the end cap, right? And so like the tube that he's going to attach is like on the ground right below. And so he's just like reaching up, taking the end cap off, and Haley, it was,
Just
I mean,
spraying.
spraying like a geyser of poop, right? And it was the grossest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like it was, I could barely even look at it. I was literally like covering my eyes and looking through a hole in my hands because I was like, I can't look at this. I think I'm gonna throw up. Like I'm about to die. Like what's going on? And Jerry, man, to his credit, he took that hose and he shoved that hose up that pipe. And so like as he's shoving it up there, it's just like still squirting out everywhere, Haley. Like I cannot convey how fast it was coming out because we had put all that anti-clog stuff in there and it was just like coming out, right? And so he finally gets this thing on, and Haley, there's just poop everywhere, like everywhere under the RV, right? All over poor Jerry, just like sprayed all over the side of the car, like everywhere. I mean, it was so gross. And he just turns around and he just like looks at me with this like sad face and he goes, well, shit.
Good sense of humor there.
And I was like, oh, Jerry, thank goodness you put on the gloves, but now you have to go take a shower.
At least, okay, so you were at a campground and you could go shower, and like clean up
Yes.
easily or somewhat easily.
Yeah, and of course, for all the people also thinking about like what we did, right? I turned around and there's literally like a KOA campground worker standing there like watching us with disdain, right? And so we like put our tails between our legs and we walk over. We're like, we have a little mishap over here. Like new RV owners, right? Like, how do we fix this? And they did. They helped us like, I guess, clean it up as best you can, which is basically like, hosing it into the hole and then like spraying like lime. I don't know. I assumed it was like lime, but I could have been anything, like a powdery thing on top of it. So we did get it all cleaned up. Jerry got a shower. I felt like I needed to shower just because I watched it. And so I took a shower and it was Haley. It was so gross. And it was like those things that like people never even know that you went through, right? And then we just show up at the next spot. We're like, all right, next riders, here you go. Right?
Do the riders ever get to shower?
So the RV actually had like an outdoor hose shower, and which was really cool. So, and it was really hot. I don't know if you saw the weather reports for that.
No, everywhere was hot.
Last week. Yeah. So it was really hot the whole week. So the like cold outdoor shower was like a great thing for them. They could definitely do that. And then as crew chief, it was like I totally earned points if I found us a truck stop with showers or a KOA with showers that like we had time to stop at. And so I would say on average, the riders, if you took an outdoor shower, you probably got 1 or 2 a day, right? But the other kinds of showers were probably limited to like twice in the week. But they were costly. Like the truck stop shower is now $17 in case people are wondering, which but there was a woman who was nice at one of them and she let like all of us funnel through for just the cost of one when she heard what we were doing for charity. So that was really nice and like a good example of the kindness of strangers. We had that. We had a woman donate $3 in quarters to me because I couldn't find any quarters and I desperately needed to wash the riders' kits at the campground and things like that. So people, as much as we had some moments that were definitely trying with the, not so nice of some of the drivers and things like that, we had many more moments of like just niceness and kindness and generosity from people who were excited to see us and were just, thought we were crazy, but were really supportive of the whole mission.
And I know I saw some photos of you with your knee brace and your crutches. How is that? How is your knee feeling?
So I don't think that sitting in the RV all week was like the best thing for recovery, but I don't think it's any worse for the wear. I am still using crutches to get around and I am going to PT tomorrow to find out exactly like how things are. But it's no worse than it was before. And honestly, being able to do that was like such a mental boost for me to kind of get out of my own head and just do something that I love to do and be around friends and things for a couple weeks. So I feel a bit mentally revived to tackle like these next few hard weeks of rehab. So I'm telling myself it was worth it no matter what. But I do think I probably just stalled in the recovery, right? I don't think I advanced, but again, I think it's probably worth it.
And you mentioned a charity that y'all were working for. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so this was all to help raise money for a charity called Special Love. They are based in Virginia, and they help they put on like camps and help children and families with cancer kind of have special times, special moments, things like that. And it's a really great organization that Brian has been involved with. And so I put a little fundraiser on my Facebook too. If people, it's still open for a bit. If you want to donate a little bit to that mission, then please do. But we were really excited. It was a huge boost from them. One of the folks from Special Love came out and like randomly met us in Virginia, and that gave the riders an extra boost for kind of that last push into Atlantic City. And so it definitely was one of those things where when you're doing it for a higher cause, right, it feels like a little bit more, it's easier to get yourself motivated.
Very cool. Well, congratulations to you and your team getting that 50 to 59 age group record for mixed teams. I think that's very, very cool. I know that we were also following the 4 women who were going for that women's record who didn't quite get it, but they did finish. Danny Grable, Katie Aguilar, and then 2 other women who we haven't had the podcast yet. So I don't know their names as well. And then of course, Dee Dee Griesbauer, another podcast guest, she finished with her team. And so I feel like it was a successful RAM, as difficult as it was, and all the challenges with the weather, the wind, and just the general challenges of riding that far. I mean, it feels like people did pretty well. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's a really special event. You know, I would say it's not something I would want to do like every single year of my life. There are people who do that, and I'm like,
what about
"Ooh,
ride
it's
it?
like a-"
Do you want to ride it? Did you want to be out there on the bike?
I would definitely consider it, but I do think I would have to, and again, I think this is because I haven't ridden my bike on roads for so long that I would have to get out there again and really develop that tolerance to riding in traffic, which I did have at one point, right? And so, I mean, I think that's totally just like a mental skill that you can have. And that was probably the biggest factor that was like, oof, I don't know if like mentally I would have that in me to do it for that long. But I do think it would be fun to get to ride some of those roads and through some of those places. I mean, they plan a route that's pretty special, I think, to get you to see a lot of America. And it's always fun to see things on 2 wheels. But for now, there's no plans for me to be riding or crewing RAM again.
All right. Well, you've earned a little break here, but thank you so much for sharing so much of that experience. I think it's pretty neat to have you out there in that crew chief position, and congrats again to your team, and congrats to everyone who did that event. This is probably, one of those years that I followed it more than others, and it looks hard, but it's so impressive. So impressive.
And Haley, thanks for holding down the fort last week for me while I was gone and talking to Sky. But do we have an update on your life? Can you give us the kind of quick once over of what's going on in the life of Haley Chura?
The weather is finally nice. I think actually a week ago right now it was snowing, and then now it's like we actually did the heat wave kind of finally got us. And so we hit like the high 80s, which is not quite the same as I know the rest of the country, but no, it feels like summer now. And mostly I have been watching a lot of Olympic trials, first swimming, and then now we're right into track and field. So I've been loving that. I think it has really, really motivated me a lot. There's just something about watching people, and RAM can be kind of the same thing, but getting to see this primetime TV, watching athletes really go after their dreams, and it is, I think I said this last week, I don't really have ambition to do a 400 IM ever again, but I love watching other people go for it and do these incredibly hard events, and watching some of the, I mentioned Gabrielle Rose last week, giving best times in the 100 and 200 meter breaststroke at age 46. I'm like, wow, if she can do that, I'm almost 39 and I'm like, I feel young. So, T100 could tell me I'm the oldest, but still, it's been very, very fun to see that. And then also just some of these athletes, I think Katie Ledecky, always a pleasure to watch her race. And I actually went out and bought her book. So Maybe if I read it and like beg her to come on the podcast someday.
Yeah,
maybe.
I know,
You never
right?
know. You never know. Sometimes when people have books out, they come on. Elizabeth Beisel played the national anthem.
Well, and she was doing this like workout that like I watched she was doing some like not an infomercial, but kind of like a strength like infomercial. I don't know. She was showing people how to build strength. She was like jump roping and doing push-ups and talking about it. And I was like, oh, I know her.
Okay, here is one. I got this question so many times last week, and so I'm calling it a de facto mailbag. And a lot of people have asked about like the double caps. Why do swimmers wear 2 caps when they swim? And the best answer I've gotten is, I mean, not everyone does it. People do different things, but I do think a lot of times people wear a latex cap underneath, and then they put their goggles and their goggle straps, and then they put a more silicone or what is called a dome cap on top of their goggles. And I believe that's because the latex cap doesn't slip as much. And then you have your goggles on the inside, and then you have this cap that's a little bit has fewer wrinkles on the outside. And then that helps keep your goggles in place so that hopefully your goggles do not fall off or fill up with water, every swimmer's worst nightmare. And then you also are a little bit more it's not hydro. What are we talking about? Hydrodynamic.
I don't know.
Less drag, less friction. The only thing I have not gotten a confirmation on, this was on my to-do list today, but I did not get it done before we recorded, was why some of the swimmers pull their caps off so fast right after the race, the top cap. And my thought is that the top cap must be pretty tight. Again, these are newer like inventions since I last raced in a pool. And I think the top cap is pretty tight. I also think maybe it isn't the most comfortable to like take your goggles off with that top cap on. You know, and so if they want to take their goggles off and really see their time and their place, they want to do that. And I think some athletes actually, you'll notice they have different logos on the cap underneath. And so maybe they just really want to show off that underneath cap. I don't know. The third one I might have just made up, but but I mean, it's interesting to see these things that athletes do. And Elizabeth showed how long it takes to put one of those suits on. I think that was a very brave broadcasting moment.
Yeah.
She was putting it on over another suit, but I still think it was like 30 minutes of like having them film her. I mean, they sped it up for the recording, but between that and following the Eras tour in London and all the shenanigans that were happening there, Travis Kelce on stage, oh my gosh, I mean, I feel like I've been winning, so things have been really good, even though I haven't left home or done anything of note.
Well, that's good. And I will say that I missed pretty much anything that happened in the world in the last 2 weeks. But I have been fully on the bandwagon of watching the London show from every camera angle we could possibly get on Instagram today, as I was catching up to all the news with Taylor Swift. And I am looking forward to hopefully staying awake for some of the Olympic trials today. You have a little bit of an advantage with the mountain time zone, but
track is hard because it's in Eugene, Oregon, so it's specific. Indy was nice because that was Eastern time. And hey, Alyssa, they announced LA 2028 SoFi Stadium. You know, you can make your triumphant return to SoFi to watch the swimming in LA 2028. So mark your calendar 4 years from now. I'm going.
I already have my reservation at my sister's house in LA set. So I'm there. We're both there together. That'll be, we'll wear our Taylor Swift merch to SoFi Stadium for the trials. Perfect.
I love it. It's a great plan. It's a great plan. There's so much to look forward to. But we also have a great interview this week, which is the good things keep coming.
Yes. So Haley, this week I chatted with Carolyn Carter, who many of you probably already know from Instagram as @LA Triathlete. We talked about her triathlon story, how her Instagram persona has grown, what her goals are with that. And we chatted about some fun non-triathlon things she's done recently and has coming up as well. So you will hear from Carolyn after a word from our sponsors. Welcome to the IronWomen podcast. I'm here this week with Carolyn Carter. Carolyn, welcome. And
thank you.
Many of our listeners probably know you from Instagram or TikTok as LA Triathlete. But I believe right now I'm talking to you and you're in Ohio, right? So
yes.
Why are you in Ohio?
So I'm from Ohio, from Cincinnati originally. So I've lived in LA almost 5 years, but my parents are still here. And I did take a red eye last night. I am on like 2 hours of sleep, but I'm feeling pretty good. But yeah, I'm here because my fiance's sister is getting married next weekend in Columbus, Ohio. So we came home a little bit early. We're going to do like a bridal shower with my family this weekend. And it's kind of nice to be home, especially in the summer when it's not freezing. So
Yeah, there's no
yeah,
like ice and rain around, like
yeah,
cold rain.
lovely.
Well, thanks
Great.
for rallying after the red eye. I know
Course.
that can be a little tough. And so did you, it's funny because someone like yourself, you have a very prominent online presence on, Instagram and stuff like that. But then I was like looking into it. I was like, oh, I'm going to have a lot to ask her about because I can't find too many answers about some of this background stuff I was looking
Oh,
for.
okay.
So can you tell us kind of, who you are? Did you grow up in Ohio? What was it that like, prompted the move to LA? Like kind of how did that flow work?
Yeah, so I did grow up in Ohio, born and raised Cincinnati, just outside Cincinnati. And then I was here, like went to college at Miami University, Ohio, not Florida. So I've been around for a while. And then in 2019, my fiance got into grad school for architecture. And all the, schools he applied to were not in Cincinnati. So luckily he got into a school in LA because that's kind of like where I really wanted to live. And then we moved out there. So yeah, so it's been almost 5 years.
Okay. And so how does sport life play into this? So were you an athlete growing up? What sport did you focus on? Yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah, so I started swimming. I think I did my first swim lesson when I was like 3. And I also like the 1996 Olympics. I was also 3 during those. And my mom said I would just like sit in front of the TV and like cry when it would not be swimming. Like I would just like wish the swimming was on. And so she signed me up for the swim team. I think I was like 4 or 5. And I just continued to swim for my whole entire life. And then I did swim. Miami is a Division 1 school. So I swam there for 1 year. And I was just so burnt out. And it was so hard with like obviously school, like class and everything. And like also, trying to do a sport and stuff. So I ended up quitting at the very, very end of my freshman year. And then I didn't do any sport for the rest of college. I mean, I was just like focused on education, but also like partying a little bit,
Yeah,
how
I
it
know,
goes.
Yeah.
And then
Standard college experience then. Yeah.
right, exactly. I was like not really focused on like fitness goals at all. And then after college, I was like, okay, I'm bored. I need a goal. I need to do something. So then I started running and then, kind of like snowballed after that into the triathlon world.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So I guess how did you, find yourself at the start line of your first triathlon? Was it with friends? Was it like a local group? And this was still then in Ohio, correct?
Correct. So, yeah. So
Okay.
my first, let me think. I graduated college in 2015 and then I like started running. And I remember I did with my fiance's family, we did this like Ohio State 4 miler. I think that was in like 2014. I guess I kind of started dabbling in running at the end of college. And I remember I just like died. And he's like, I think his family's like they're like a turkey trot family, And so his dad like does marathons and all this. And so I remember I was just like dying during this 4 miler. I was like, I hate running. But then, I started doing it more and got better at it. But then in 2016, I signed up for my first half marathon in May, the Flying Pig in Cincinnati. And I remember I was signed up for it, had never ran a half. And like in March of that same year, I was like, you know what? I didn't even own a bike at this point, right? But I was like, okay, I'm doing a half marathon. I was like, I should do a half Ironman, which was like, I don't even have a bike. So that I signed up for Ironman 70.3 Ohio, which was in that coming July. I ran the Flying
Soon.
Pig in
Yeah,
May.
whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was soon.
Yeah.
I was like, this is weird. I don't know the decision making process there, but I bought a bike like a couple weeks later, just like a cheap road bike, ran the half marathon in May, and it was fine. And then I was like, okay, I should probably do one triathlon before a half Ironman. So I signed up for this local one here, Mojo. I did the Olympic distance and that was in June. And I remember doing it and I was like, I had never done a brick workout, all this stuff. And I got to the run and I was like crying. I was like, I hate this so much. How am I going to do a half Ironman in like 1 month? And then, after that, I was like, okay, I did some brick workouts and then the half Ironman actually went pretty well. So and then after that, I was addicted. Yeah.
And so how did swimming, like, were you one of those kind of swimmers who I think the burnout story is really common for swimmers? Yeah. And so were you coming into triathlon as like, I'm not even going to practice swimming. I'm just going to rest on my muscle memory. Or did you like find that you liked getting back in the pool? How did that approach go?
That's a really good question. I think initially it was a struggle. I'm not gonna lie, it was a struggle. And I remember when I quit, I was like, I'm never getting in the pool again, which I really didn't for like the rest of college. I was a lifeguard too at the pool, and Miami has a really nice facility. I literally don't think I swam once um at that pool. And then yeah, I think after I think I joined a gym here like up near my mom's because I was still living at home that was like really fancy and had a really nice pool and like an outdoor pool, and that like kind of motivated me a little more. But it was really like, honestly, it was a once a week situation until like last year. And then I hired my coach, started swimming at an outdoor pool year round in California. And I swim like 3 to 4 times a week. But yeah, it was definitely like, took a while to come back from the burnout.
Do you think that the burnout, like, and having that kind of in mind with your approach to sport, did you approach triathlon differently because of like, were you like afraid of kind of getting burnt out with this too? Or because it does seem like you're like, all right, I'll do a half Ironman, right? Like you're 2 feet in jumping kind of person. So
I think it helped the fact that there's 3 sports to train for, not just like one thing all the time. But also, I think for me, the way I tried to avoid that for a long time, because like I said, I started triathlon in 2016. I didn't hire a coach until 2022. And the reason for me was just like, I don't want someone telling me what to do. Because that was kind of the thing I was like over. I was just like, I don't, even now, like my coach gives me like swim workouts, right? But I don't even like doing masters. Like I did masters for a while and it was just like, okay, I don't want him telling what to do. It's just like, let me just do my own thing. So yeah, I think like, especially with swimming, but yeah, like, that's why I kind of avoided having a coach for a while. Now it's fine. It's good. I really like my coach. So
okay. Yeah, if it's a good fit, then that helps with a lot because they could understand that side too, maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and then Carolyn, you are one of the many pros who balance working with their triathlon career, right? So what do you do for work and what does that balance look like for you?
That is a great question. So I work for a engineering firm, like a global engineering firm. They do sustainable infrastructure. I'm in marketing. I don't know if that's social media marketing specifically. I don't know if that's surprising, but it's more
It's
like
all,
B2B.
yeah, things are making more sense now.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's kind of funny because my major was environmental science, and then but it's like, completely kind of shifted to marketing, which I really love. But I feel like I'm on this team. Like my team that I'm on at work is it's very laid back. And it's a flex work environment. So I do most like, half, more than half at home, like a day or 2 in the office. And the like working from home is very helpful with training. Just because it's like, there's no commute, especially like in LA, that's never fun. But just like living close to the pool, being able to get in like lunch swims, starting earlier. Everyone else is like central or eastern time. So I start work at like 7 to like 4. So I'm able to get like workouts in after work. But yeah, it's not like the easiest thing in the world. I mean, it's not like a super stressful job, but there are times where I'm super busy and I've had to miss workouts, or like we're headquartered in Kansas City. So, maybe once or twice a year I have to go to the office for a week, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to bring my bike. I won't be able to swim. So it's just like, kind of have to accept that, but it's fine.
And with your journey to kind of becoming a pro, at what point in this, self-coached, did you think like, like maybe I could race with the top women, right?
So this is kind of a funny story. I didn't think I ever could, ever. I was like, that's like my ultimate dream in triathlon, right? And then I did this Olympic distance, the LA Triathlon in 2022. I like didn't really even, I never really understood the pro qualifying criteria. It's really confusing.
It is,
And
yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's like paragraphs long. I'm like, I don't even know. So I did that race and I placed 3rd overall for women. And I don't know if you know Brittany Talbot. She's got her married last name is like, or I don't know if it's her maiden name or whatever, but her name's Brittany Talbot.
Okay.
She's a pro now. She's really fast. But anyway, so she won. And I remember she like messaged me on Instagram and she's like, hey, are you going to take your pro card? I was like, what? Like after the race. And I was like, she's like, yeah, you like qualified. And I was like, oh my God, I did. And so I looked it up and I was like, oh. And then it was kind of like, okay, do I take it? Because I was like, I'm not like, I'm like gonna be like the worst one, bottom of the barrel. But I was like, who knows if I'll ever qualify again? So then I took it.
And Carolyn, you're competing in in an environment where women's professional triathlon is like just booming, right?
Right.
And so I think that I love this story because I think it's so important, having gone pro in 2014 and like seeing this
Right.
evolution, it's like so important for women, right, who have qualified and deserve to belong there, to like step up and take that.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's really great that, you did that, and I want to definitely commend you for that. Have there been times of doubt where you're like, man, I could just be top step of that age group podium right now, kind of thing?
Oh, for sure. Even that first year, I had such bad like imposter syndrome, like especially coming to my first pro race. I was like, as time has gone on, I've gotten to know like most, big majority of the pro women, and because you kind of show up to the similar races and everything, and everyone is so nice. But I remember like showing up to my first, I think it was Santa Cruz 70.3, and I was just like so nervous, and I was like, I just kept doubting myself. I was like, I don't belong here. And then I had a terrible race, so it's like maybe I shouldn't think like that. But yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, it was a hard decision to make, but again, it's like I earned it. So if I'm ever feeling like doubtful of myself, it's like, okay, no, there's literally criteria that I met. So it's like I do deserve to be here as much as anyone else. And it's like I think I have my pro card until the end of 2025. Unless I qualify again, which that would be the main goal. That would be awesome. I would love to qualify again. And if not, I go back to age group and then can have fun in age group too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we're, the other side of this is now we're starting to see a lot of women that like I raced with and things like that who are continuing their triathlon careers as age groupers, right?
Right.
Like the flip side of it is maybe they don't want to take it as seriously anymore and stuff. But I think it's really cool that you've stepped up for this time, see how long it lasts. And yeah, you're giving it a go, which is awesome.
Yeah.
As part of this year, there's a lot of exciting things going on. The T100 series with like the shorter invite only racing. And then there's the Ironman Pro series. And then that kind of also leaves though some Ironman races that are like more open, right? It like allows for more of kind of a developmental field to be coming about in 70.3 in Ironman racing. So what is, you're not a pro who's racing a ton through the year, right? Unless I totally missed some results, but you usually race 2 to 3 70.3s I've seen a year. So
Yeah.
what is your approach this year? Has it changed with the kind of influx of these things and like looking at start lists and things like that?
Well, this year, this was a very, so before I got engaged, I got engaged at the end of last year in December, and I was planning on like racing a lot, but then like of course now I've got the wedding and the honeymoon and stuff. But I think next year, not when that's like all over and it's just like I don't have much else planned for 2025. And again, it's my last year with my pro card. It's just like I really like the Ironman Pro series. I don't know, it just feels like special. I can't explain it. I don't know, like they're releasing the pro list on Instagram and like there's just so much excitement and hype around it. And it's like, oh my God, I want to do more of these. It's so addicting. But also, but like you said, like it does leave room for like the non-pro series races. And I'm like, maybe I should do some of those next year and then try to requalify for my pro card. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know.
Lots of options, which is good. Yeah, no, I think it is good to point out that it's kind of take what you make of it, because it is like that kind of a pro series has not existed before, right? Where the athletes are really being celebrated, we're really being hyped, like photo shoots, all that stuff is really cool. But yeah, it'll be fun to make that decision, I think, when the time comes. And congratulations on the engagement, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you a like bridal party will be swimming 100 by 100 the morning of my wedding type of bride, or are you gonna be like not active bride on your wedding weekend? Are you running a 5K for your I guess what it will be your sister-in-law? Like, are you doing that for the bridal festivities this weekend? Like, are you coordinating active things?
She is doing a yoga thing on the morning of the wedding, and I'm like, that's cool. But it's so funny because honestly, like I'd say 75% of my friends that are coming to the wedding are all cyclists. And they're like, are you riding? Like, what's the ride on your wedding? It's in Santa Barbara. So there's great riding up there. And they're all bringing their bikes and they're like, what's your plan for the I'm like, probably not going to ride on the wedding morning. But I don't know. I got this. Zoot had this really cute wedding collection that they launched like a year ago, and I have this really cute little like wedding tank.
Oh,
I'm like,
fun.
maybe I can
Yeah.
like. I mean, I might go run in the morning of the wedding. I don't know if it'll make other people, but my bachelorette is in July up in Lake Tahoe, and so I'm like, we're hiking. There's gonna be like, if anyone wants to wake up at 6 and hike, like let me know. So
Nice.
but I'm like, no one's forced to do anything.
Okay. Okay. That's a lot of good stuff to look forward to then.
Yeah. I'm so
And
excited.
then tell us a little bit more about your new coach. You mentioned you started working with them last year. Who are they? Kind of like, how did you go about? I think that's a question we get a lot. It's like, I pick a coach. So what was your kind of approach to that?
So I hired after I got my pro card. I still didn't have a coach when I got my pro card, and I was like, okay, I need to get better at running if I'm gonna race against the pros. So I hired a coach who I kind of just hired the first one. Like he was recommended to me by somebody. He wasn't local here in LA or anything, and I just had like a call with him, and I was like, I don't really know anything about triathlon coaching. I've never done this before, so I hired him like right off the bat. I don't think I asked the right questions though. And it was just like kind of like our philosophies didn't really align. Like he's very much, it was a lot of, for me, I'm very social. Like I need like group rides. It's, it was just a lot of like zone 2, sit on your bike for 3 hours in zone 2. And I'm like, and like sit on the trainer. I'm like, I can't, for me personally, that's not something I can do. So I stuck with him through, I think I hired him in June of 2022. And then we parted ways in December. And it was like nothing personal. It was just different philosophies. And then I didn't have a coach again for like 8 months. And then I found this guy. I didn't really find him. A bunch of my friends are coached by him. So he coaches a lot of track cyclists. So like one of my best friends, Haley, she's like pro, like mountain bike. She's like very good cyclist. And then I have another friend, Jonathan, who's a triathlete, and they all they didn't know each other, but they all have the same coach. His name is Pete Colson. His team is called Champion Factory Racing. And when I initially reached out to him, he's like, yeah, just like send me an email with your goals, like what you want out of a coach, all this stuff. So I sent him like the longest email, and like it's just been great. He's so flexible. And yeah, my big thing honestly was like I do like 4 rides a week, usually about 4, and I'm like I need 2 of them at least to be group rides. And I was like, you can give me 1 interval trainer ride, and then runs. I was like, if I hit over like 35 miles a week, I start to get like injured. I'm like, that's probably not good. So I was like, can we keep the mileage like below that and all this stuff? So anyway, I've had him for almost a year now, and my running like has gotten so much better, and it's just like he's just wonderful, and it's so nice. I mean, I didn't want to coach at first, like I said before, but it's been so nice just like having structure, and I don't know, it does help a lot. So
Yeah.
highly recommend. But my advice for finding a coach is just like shop around. You don't have to feel guilty. I think I'm such a people pleaser. It's like I don't want to tell anyone no. It's just shop around, ask the right questions, and make sure you're finding the right coach for you.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so you've mentioned these group rides in LA, and I follow Colleen Quigley on Instagram, and she lives in LA a lot of times. She travels around a lot, but she also, I see going to these group rides sometimes with like huge, massive groups. Are you going to the same ride? Like, what group rides do you seek out? Why is LA a great place to train other than obviously, what we all know of nice sunshine, beautiful beaches, that sort of thing?
That does help. I have such a girl crush on Colleen. I'm like, one time, okay, so she doesn't follow me on Instagram, which is fine, but like one time I slid in her DMs and I was like, hey, if you ever want to ride together, but I don't think she ever saw it. And I was like,
I know. So it's funny. Haley interviewed her, and I told her I was going to this was last year, and I was like, oh, because my sister lives in LA, and so I was like, oh, and she was starting to swim, and I was like, she was like, it was in her beginner swimmer phase. This might have been like 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, let's meet up for a swim. And she didn't answer me either. So we can both feel good about the fact that clearly she just didn't see these messages.
She seems so nice. I'm like, she's got like 500,000 followers. I'm like, there's no way she saw it. Yeah. But she's more on like the west side. And I do like riding over there, but I'm in Pasadena, like east, just slightly east of LA. And so it's like, for me to like venture over there, I'm just lazy with it. I don't want to drive over there. So I've never ended up on the same group ride as her, but there's one on the east side I do called Montrose. It's huge. It's like there's 3 different times that the ride goes off on Saturday mornings, and it's like at least 100 people per group. It's just massive. But I don't know, like I think the cycling in LA, it's so funny. When I moved out there, when I was living here, I started group rides and like that summer before I moved, like 2018. And I was like, these are so fun. Like, what a great way to meet friends. And I would do this one on Tuesdays, like every Tuesday. And I was so sad when I moved to LA. I was like, there's not going to be anywhere to ride. Cause like you think LA, you think traffic and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, there's a group ride every night of the week if you want. But I just, I don't know. I think like there's just so many different places to ride, like the mountains. You can go like climb. There's a million different mountain roads. You can do the Rose Bowl ride, which is like just like a 3 mile loop that's really, really, really fast. And there's little hills around my apartment. There's just so many options. And like you said, like, you know, year round, perfect weather helps too.
Just a little bit better than
Right.
Ohio winter weather.
Right, exactly.
And you are at LA Triathlete on Instagram and TikTok. And so I'm curious how this came about. Did you move there? Did you already have a pretty heavy Instagram follow? So you have just under 86,000 followers at this point. And so that's a lot, right? That's a lot. I mean, in the span of like pro triathletes, that's a lot. So how did this kind of, you know, online persona kind of come to be?
So I started the account in 2015 when I started. I think I was just lost fitness wise. I think it was kind of before like I was really into running and I was just like seeing other people have fitness Instagram accounts. So I actually started it as like a fitness account. And then I signed up for the triathlon and I was like, I'm gonna make this a triathlon account. And I actually started out as Cincy Triathlete. And so but I didn't really like post consistently. And it was just kind of like, I don't know, like it didn't start off very hot. And then I didn't post that much. And then when I moved to LA, there's just, I met more people and I was also getting like better photos because like it's very scenic there, right? And like I was riding way more, meeting more people. So then it kind of grew. And I remember like when I first moved, I think it jumped to like 2,000 or 3,000. And I was like, this is kind of popping off. And then I remember like I didn't really know about reels and I'd see them occasionally. And then I remember I'd made my very first reel and I think it was a transition. Oh my gosh, I actually don't remember. I might have been before a triathlon and I was like doing a transition and then I like posted it and I got a lot of likes and then I went up to 5,000 followers and I was like, okay, wait, like the reels are the key, right? And I was like, it was really fun to make. And so then I just, became really consistent with it and like I really love it. It's so much fun. And then it just like kind of took off and it's such a great community and it's so fun to like there's a lot of beginner triathletes and cyclists that follow me and I don't know, I get a lot of like messages. I'm not the best. Sometimes I'm like overwhelmed. I get too many messages. And I'm like, oh my God, can't answer all these. But I don't know. It's just cool to like, answer questions and help people like get into the sport and feel less intimidated, because triathlon's a little scary.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you do a great job with kind of providing beginner tips and things like that. I think that's really, really good. I'm always amazed by like how creative it is. Like, and I guess it's just, are you just naturally a creative person and you like see, cause you can see the trending reels, right? Like the music or whatever, the background voice or whatever is happening. And so do you just naturally see that as you're like kind of on Instagram and then you're like, oh, boom, like your brain just matches it up to a cycling or a triathlon kind of scenario. And you're like, this is it.
That's a great question. Yeah. So that's pretty much how it happens. So usually like in the evenings, I'll scroll through reels and just like find trending audio. And then if I find one that's like funny, which I haven't been finding like as many good ones lately, but I'll like save it. And then I have a notes app in my phone where I like put ideas, but I'll like save the audio and then I'll go through, like, I'll think of something, I'll think of an idea and I'm like, oh, I'll come back and like make that later. And another way is like, I'll just literally be on a run or a ride and like something funny will happen. And I'm like, I should make a reel about this. Like the one I posted last week where I was like, tubeless riders will be covered in sealant calling an Uber home and tell you like tubeless is still better. And it was just because my friend's tire exploded and I was like, he saw me with the phone. He's like, oh, she's going to post this. I was like up there like in that content. So I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes it just comes to me, but it is, sometimes it's hard, sometimes my creative brain isn't working. And then it's like, I'm like, I feel like I have to come up with posts and I'm like, I don't have to post every day, but I like put that pressure on myself, which is kind of sucks. Like this week, I'm home, can't really film while I'm here. So I was like, okay, I need to have at least 5 in the drafts that I can fire off.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, I don't. Like, it's fine.
And so it sounds like, I mean, one of the first things you said was that the community is great. And then, now it sounds like the negatives are almost like your internal negatives, right? Like pressure on yourself.
Right.
Do you find that you get a lot of like trolls and people kind of that you don't want to be interacting with? And how do you deal with that?
Okay. I feel like sometimes I feel like I get a lot, and then I like see other people, like I'll be scrolling through reels and then I like read comments and I'm like, okay, people are so mean. And I'm like, honestly, I feel pretty lucky about how few I have compared to other people. But the trolls that I get are just like, it's always like middle-aged men, which I find very strange because it's like a dude who's got like his family, like his wife and his kids in his profile picture. And I'm like, you're a dad.
Oh my gosh.
And you're
yeah.
like, I don't know. Like I posted one where I made a joke and it was like how I like ran my first sub 130 half marathon. And then the next clip I was just like, I didn't, because I've never gone sub 130. And then he's like, well, maybe if you stopped filming yourself and like, I don't know. He's just like, I don't know. He's like, maybe you just focus on your running and your runs. I'm like, it was like a 2-second like of me filming myself. But I don't know. Like the trolls, my tactic is usually if it's really stupid, I like to like post it on my story. But I usually block them so they can't even see. But I'm just like, let me embarrass this person for like sounding like such an idiot. But usually I just block them. I'm like, I'll just move on. It used to like really get to me, I think, at the beginning when I started getting a lot. And I was like, I took it personally. And I was like, okay, think about how sad this person's life is to be like spending time commenting negative things on someone's Instagram. It's like, it's not worth it. Just block and move on. My block list is like 200 right now. I just checked it. It's a lot.
That's good to know because I do think people sometimes feel bad about the blocking, right? But I think that's a great strategy. And it's like, it helps to be like out of sight, out of mind, right? And
Absolutely.
you don't need them inserting themselves into your life,
Right. And it's like, it kind of sucks because when you block them, their comment disappears. And then I'm like, oh, I'm losing precious engagement. But like, it's fine.
So my last major topic that I wanted to discuss with you is actually, I do have one more question about in a recent reel, you said that you love serial killer podcasts. Do you have a favorite?
Oh, I've got yes. That's a favorite. I have 2 favorites. So I really like Crime Junkie. That's a classic. But that's like it's like if I'm feeling more serious, But I think my favorite is Last Podcast on the Left.
Oh, I haven't. I'll try that. I do love a good true crime. Okay. All
it's
right.
3 comedians.
Okay.
And they just like talk about, I mean, it's not always serial killers, but
okay.
Actually,
true crime stuff.
Mostly. Yeah, true crime stuff, but it's really funny. Yeah.
Okay. I'll add that to the list. Okay. Now on to the last big topic. The Price is Right.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So Carolyn, I think last December, correct me if I'm wrong, you were on The Price is Right. And people, I'm going to have a major spoiler here. So if you are friends with Carolyn and you want to like watch the episode and not have a spoiler, turn this off and you'll have to come back to it. But so we're going to start at the beginning.
Yes, let's do
Recently, Haley and I have been discussing fashion. And so when I saw the clips of you, you were wearing a shirt, I think, with bananas on it, right? And so what's your fashion shirt like part of your strategy to be getting on the show? Is it totally random if you get picked to called up to even start to come on?
I'll tell you the whole thing. So when we moved out to LA, we signed up for this website that gives like you get free audience tickets to shows. So we like signed up, but then COVID happened. We stopped getting emails, and then we started getting them back again. And we went after COVID was like last year. We saw Jeopardy. That was cool. We saw America's Got Talent, and then we kept getting emails about The Price is Right. But they always film in the middle of like a work day, and I was like, I'm not taking PTO for this. But they filmed one that like was at 5 p.m. on a Friday. And so my fiance and I were like, okay, we're going to go. We like got the tickets. We forgot about it kind of like we kind of remember, but we were busy and we were like going to make shirts and then we didn't. And then the time came and I was like, okay, I know my cycling kits are fun, but my regular clothes really are kind of boring. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to wear? And Ostroy, who makes cycling kits, had sent me this like, just, a month before, not knowing I was going to be on The Price is Right or anything, but like this banana, like casual like cycling shirt.
Yeah, it's like a button down, right? Okay, yeah, it's cute.
And I was like, okay, this is like fun. I feel like the colors are right. And then I wore leggings. I don't know. I was gonna wear like shorts, and I was like, I don't know if they like there's no dress code, but I was like, I want to feel like appropriate. And then so we went to the show, and you stand in line, and I found out we had standby tickets. We didn't even have real tickets, but everyone got in, and it was fine. And then they put you in this big room. like with everyone, and then they take you out in groups of like 10 and interview everyone in these groups, and that's kind of where they like pick you, but you don't know you're getting picked, and they ask you your name, your job, and where you're from. And so I really played up the professional triathlete part of it. I was like kind of like pretending like that was my actual job, and I was, you just gotta have a lot of pizzazz. And I was like, my name's Carolyn, like I'm a professional triathlete, and I was like, and I'm wearing my Garmin, and I want to see how high I can get my heart rate out in the audience, or something stupid, which is funny because you're not even allowed to wear smartwatches. I had to take it off. But anyway.
Oh.
So yeah, they like, you don't know, you go sit back down, and then you sit in the audience, they like put you in your seat, and then yeah, you don't even know you're getting called down. And I got called down, and I was like, oh my God.
Oh
and then I was down there. I don't know if
the smartwatch is because like they don't want people texting you like answers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you go in, you like have to give them your phone and any smartwatch. And I was like, that's kind of, I mean, I get it, but I was like,
yeah,
Garmin, I gotta have Bluetooth. Like,
oh my gosh.
Okay, like a tan line.
You get yourself from, I forget like the actual name. You get yourself from the initial bidding thing, right, up to play a game, and then a spoiler, you lose the normal game.
I do. Yeah, that was a very emotional time for me.
Devastating, right?
Devastating.
So, but you still get to go spin the wheel.
Yes.
And so how hard is the wheel spin? Like, do you get to practice?
So that's funny because that's my biggest question of my entire life. I used to watch this show like every day when I was younger, like in the summer. It's like, honestly, I kind of blacked out the whole thing. If I recall, it's not that you don't get to practice it, but it's really not as heavy as you would think.
Okay.
The hard thing was I feel like you like pull it down, but you like back up, because I'm like, I could totally see someone like getting their head hit by it. But yeah, it wasn't like, it's not super heavy, but it was like kind of had a little weight to it.
Okay. Okay. So the spinning of the wheel goes really well, right? You move into the showcase showdown.
Yes.
And then I like couldn't quite get all the details here, but the gist of it is you get your showcase, right? And you bid $25,700.
Yes.
And the actual price of yours was $25,786, I think. So you were within $200, and that means you win not only your showcase, but the other person's showcase. So you got a car, a trip to this is like such a fancy trip. It's like the Seychelles. Is that how you say Seychelles? Okay.
Yes.
So nice. And then did you win a bedroom set, or did I make that up?
I did. So it was, trip, car, bedroom set, washer, dryer, a TV, a record player, Jimmy Choo's. Maybe that's it. But like, you don't have to take everything.
Okay. So that's my next question. So then what happens next? Like you get all these things, and what's the process?
So first of all, it's so funny. So I didn't tell anyone, right? We filmed this in September, and then the show aired in December. And so I couldn't tell. I mean,
So you didn't drive your new car home that day?
Nothing at all. And so it's like a Friday night. I'm like, oh my God, my mom's asleep probably. She's in Ohio 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm with my fiance. He's like, you cannot tell anyone. And like,
so they tell you can't tell anyone.
Like you can't tell. You could probably say you're on The Price is Right, but like you can't say what you won. Or so I was like, you know what? I'm such a I tell everyone my secrets. Everyone knows everything about me. And I was like, I'm not going to tell anyone anything. So I go to my Montrose group ride Saturday. I'm like riding with my best friends, and I'm like, nobody knows.
My gosh.
And I'm like, the adrenaline. So anyway, then 3 months goes by, and my excitement kind of died down until it aired. And then we had like a watch party. I'm texting everyone the night before, like, you have to watch it. And they're like, did you win? And I was like, what do you think? I was like, just watch it. So anyway, we're watching it I was home for Christmas, and my mom had a watch party, and like everyone sees me lose the trip to Rome, and they're like, oh, it looks like she's gonna win a honeymoon. And then I lost it. And then so the showcase showdown, I passed the first showcase with the car, and everyone in the room is like, no. And I was like, I knew that the second one was gonna have a trip, and I already have a car. And so I was like, but anyway, so yeah, just the whole thing. I don't even know, it's crazy. But you don't have to take all the prizes. You pick and choose, but you don't get cash value for the prizes you don't take, which is a huge bummer. Yeah. So you
get them. You could get it though. You'd bring it, but if you don't want the Jimmy Choo's, they're not going to give you the amount that costs in cash.
Yeah, okay. You just don't get them. So it's like, that kind of sucks, but it's like, I get it. And so obviously you don't get anything till after the show airs, but you like get a week to decide what you're taking. So I took the trip, the car, the shoes, and the TV. And then everything else, like at the bedroom set, I didn't really like the washer dryer. I'm like, I live in an apartment that has like communal. So it was just, it's kind of hard to decide. Plus you have to pay income tax, which is 30%. So I was like, so I got the car, and I have it was a SUV. I already have an SUV that I like. So I was like, I sold the car.
Okay, so you can take things and then sell them yourself.
Yeah, you can do whatever
Okay.
you want once it's yours. So I got the car in March, like right after the show aired, actually, when I got back. And then, it was a really nice car, and I thought about keeping it, but I would have had to pay like $10,000 in taxes on it. And I was like, let me just sell the car and then use the money to cover the taxes for the other things, including the trip, which is our honeymoon. So that's cool.
Fun. Yeah, that could not have been more perfect.
I know. I was like, oh my God. Everyone thought he proposed because I won. And then they're like, you got to take the trip because you have to take it within a year of the show airing. And everyone's like, did you propose because you won? And I was like, apparently, he told my mom he was going to propose like 2 weeks before we did the show. So I was like,
so he got it on the record that it was happening regardless.
Yes, he got on the record. And then we didn't know when we were going to get married. And I was like, well, we should do it like this year and then use the trip as our honeymoon. So it worked out.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for entertaining me and giving me all those
you're
details.
So welcome.
Yeah. Do you ever get recognized from anyone that recognizes you from The Price is Right? Because The Price is Right has like a cult following.
It does. Honestly, no, that would be so cool though. I would love that.
Maybe
that would be like the best thing ever. But it did air again. So it aired on December 27th. And then I was like sitting at home on a random Friday in March working. And then people were texting me and like Instagram messaging me because they played my episode before one of the Final Four games. Because it's
yeah, that's big.
Right. To get people like entertained and jazzed up. So I was like this is so embarrassing. But during both times when it aired, I was like on Twitter searching The Price is Right. And people were like, yeah, double showcase showdown got me like hype, ready for the Final Four. And I was like, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool. I was like, glad I can make your day.
Yeah, totally. Well, I feel like if you wear the banana shirt around, that might like increase your odds of getting recognized. So
that's actually a really good idea. That's a great shirt.
It is. So. It is. Yeah, I liked it. Carolyn, thank you so much for chatting with me today. We will obviously link, I think most of our listeners probably are following you already, but we will link to you in social media.
Perfect.
Best of luck with this season, including the wedding and everything. I have a feeling that trip to the Seychelles will give you plenty of fun, maybe not quite in LA content, but hopefully we get a few sneak peeks of what it's like to see you there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Listen, that was a fun conversation. And I do love the at LA Triathlete Instagram reels whenever they show up on my feed. They are very funny. And, now I am all into this LA wave for LA 2028. I shouldn't be into LA already. Paris hasn't even happened, but we'll just keep everything going. I mean, but Paris is going to be so amazing. And then the next Summer Olympics are going to be in the US. I just can't believe it. It's so many good things, so many good things.
I know we're really riding a high right now with all of this. And I'm sure Carolyn is just as excited as we are for everything in LA in 2028. I think that will probably really help her content situation for Instagram. But I mean, that's like endless content, right? When the Olympics are where you live. So anyway, thanks to Carolyn for coming on and chatting with us. Haley, I hope the heat wave sticks and Bozeman and snow is finally gone. And I will talk to you next week.
I hope you get some sleep, Alyssa. I'll talk to you later. You've been listening to the IronWomen podcast hosted by Haley Chura and Alyssa Godesky.
IronWomen is a production of Feisty Media and is edited by Lydia Russell and produced by Ella Natition.
Head to livefeisty.com to find more podcasts, stories, and fresh perspectives.
Thanks for listening.